Hello and welcome. Another video for you with new stories from Ethiopia, Eritrea and Sudan. Headlines. First, Tigray is inviting Eritrea. Tigray wants dialogue. It wants discussion. It wants negotiations. This is the second time that a top Tigray leader asked Eritrea to negotiate, to engage with Tigray leaders. Who is this leader? What is going to be Eritrean response? Secondly, viewers, people in the Amhara region are confronting Ethiopian National Defense Force. We have been seeing that in the last 2 to 3 months. We have a clip for you from a town which is in Amhara region of Ethiopia, where unarmed youths were confronting armed ENDF members. They were throwing stones at them. They had just sticks in their hands, but they were just ready to clash with Ethiopian National Defense Force in a town in the Amharian clip for you. And thirdly, viewers, very important clip for you of a Sudanese army general. He's a top general. Number 3 in Sudanese army is this general. And yesterday he directly addressed Kenyan President William Ruto. A few days ago, Sudanese military rejected Kenyan presidency of a committee formed by IGAD to mediate between rapid support forces and Sudanese military. Back then, if you remember, Sudanese military officials had said that Kenya was not neutral. It had links with rapid support forces. But the Sudanese general yesterday directly addressed William Ruto. What did he say? Detail for you. Firstly, viewers, Tigray and Eritrea are still locked in a dispute over the demarcation of their border. Tigray-Eritrea or Ethiopia-Eritrea border not demarcated. The two have several grievances against each other. That is why the Eritrean Defense Force became part of the war. It supported Ethiopian National Defense Force. Purpose was to make TPLF irrelevant. Purpose was to weaken TPLF's political and military power in Ethiopia, in the Horn of Africa. And their animosity has been going on for around 3 decades now. No engagement between them after the start of war. They met in the past, held discussions, signed agreements. But in the 2-year-long war, we saw that Eritrean forces, Tigrayan forces, they fought. No discussions. Discussions were only held between Ethiopian federal government representatives and Tigray representatives. They held talks mediated by African Union, IGAD, US, EU. Agreement was signed in Pretoria. Agreement being implemented, Eritrea was not part of talks. But Tigray still says that implementation is not going according to the agreement, that Tigray territory is still under the control of Amhara forces and Eritrean military. Almost on daily basis, we see statements from Tigray leaders saying that Eritrean military is in illegal occupation of Tigray territories. Tigray is silent, but Eritrea is silent. But Eritrean activists, they say that Eritrea is in control of only those areas which were given to Eritrea by a boundary commission formed after Algiers agreement around 2 decades ago. So I say that Eritrea has unilaterally enforced the decision of the boundary commission. Tigray leaders are inviting Eritrean leadership to come to the table. This invitation is not formal. It's not that Tigray has sent a request to Eritrea And Tigray won't send a request to Eritrea directly because Tigray is a region of Ethiopia. Eritrea is a country. Tigray can only proceed through Addis Ababa. It cannot hold direct talks with Eritrea without taking Addis Ababa on board. But two statements of Tigray leaders indicate that the Tigray leaders want to negotiate. Will the Ethiopian government play a part in this new development to convince Tigray and Eritrea to sit at the table? That remains to be seen. Eritrean response over two. Two leaders spoke about need of talks. Firstly, we heard from Debretsion. A few days ago, Debretsion was interviewed by BBC Tigray, and there he spoke about need of talks. He said Eritrea should withdraw from territories like Badme, and then talks should be held about implementation of Algiers agreement. That was the first call for dialogue. Second call for dialogue came a few hours ago when Getachew addressed a gathering in Denver. Getachew is in the US. There he's speaking about policy issues, about Tigray's independence, about secession, about Article 39, about withdrawal of Eritrean forces, about return of IDPs, etc. And there he addressed Eritrea. He said, we are willing to discuss with Eritrea. Let's have a talk. He said, let's ensure that not a single drop of blood falls and conflicts are resolved peacefully. He said, there is thirst for peace in Tigray. So, Getachew and Debretsion are two top leaders of Tigray. At least verbally, they have invited Eritrea. They are inviting Eritrea to start talks. Is it a sign of the weakness of Tigray leaders that they are ready to talk? Or are they fed up with the war? Well, firstly, let's wait for Eritrean response. I think Eritrea should respond positively to this call for peace from Tigray. Talks should be held. No matter what Eritrean concerns are, their demands are, but at least the two sides should sit at the table. If they start talking to each other, you will see this atmosphere of animosity will gradually change into atmosphere of friendliness, or at least atmosphere of no animosity. So far, we are seeing that both sides keep on issuing statements accusing each other, and we see the same heated engagements between Tigrayan and Eritrean diaspora communities too. Pro-Eritrean government diaspora community and Tigrayans and opposition Tigrayans are involved in clashes in Europe. So this atmosphere of animosity must turn into atmosphere of engagement. Let's hope that Eritrea responds positively to Tigray's call for peace. Tigray definitely is not in a position to start a new war. Tigray fighters, I think Tigray is right now focused on Wolkayet and Raya. Before taking Wolkayet and Raya, Tigray won't start a war on Eritrea. It wants Wolkayet, Raya through negotiation, through whatever means it can get back these territories. Then it might think about other options to retake territories from Eritrea. At this point of time, Tigray forces are mainly being deployed along Tekeze. Tigray wants to retake Wolkayet, sending a strong message that it wants Wolkayet back. Other side, making preparations. We see that Eritrean government backing, arming, training of militias in Raya, Wolkayet. So it's not easy for Tigray to retake Wolkayet, Raya. Before retaking of Wolkayet, Raya, I don't think Tigray would consider any non-peaceful, violent options to resolve the dispute with Eritrea. So ball is now in the court of Eritrea. Will Eritrea respond positively? That remains to be seen. So far, Eritrea is silent. Not a single word said from Eritrean government officials about Tigray's call for peace. Secondly, viewers, Amhara Fano fighters getting public support in the Amhara region. People protecting them, people standing between Fano fighters and Ethiopian National Defense Force. And in most cases, people are unarmed. Unarmed youths, frustrated, disgruntled, they don't want Ethiopian National Defense Force to chase, to kill Fano fighters. Wherever there is confrontation between Fano fighters and Ethiopian National Defense Force, people intervene. So in Gondar, in Gojam, and now in Wollo too. In South Wollo, there is Makane Salam. Yesterday in Makane Salam, people protested. Angry youths took to the streets. They confronted a convoy of Ethiopian National Defense Force. They threw stones at this convoy. Unarmed, empty-handed youths were just throwing stones, trying to push ENDF back. This is the spirit in the Amhara region that Fano has managed to mobilize people. People supporting Fano's narrative about Amharas. Fano's narrative is that Amhara existence in danger. It is fighting for the existence of Amhara people. This narrative is selling. ENDF is not in a position to launch major operations in cities, because in cities people then start protesting. Ethiopian military then has to back down. That we saw in Makane Salam, where there was a clash between Fano and people, Ethiopian National Defense Force. Then people intervened, people took to the streets, they clashed with ENDF. ENDF retreated reportedly. A clip for you from Makane Salam, South Wollo. Thirdly, viewers, Sudan or top Sudanese General is warning Kenya. Kenya was not seen as a likely supporter or a potential supporter of rapid support forces when this war in Sudan broke out on the 15th of April. But we saw that when IGAD 2 weeks ago formed a committee to mediate between rapid support forces and Sudanese military. Sudanese military rejected Kenyan presidency of that committee. Sudanese military said that the committee should be led by South Sudan Salva Kiir, not by Kenyan President William Ruto. And military said that Kenya had links with rapid support forces, economic ties with rapid support forces. That is why that IGAD initiative could not proceed, could not make any progress. And back then, if you remember, PM Abiy of Ethiopia and Ruto of Kenya, President Ruto of Kenya, they proposed deployment of East Africa Security Force in Sudan. And I remember Ruto criticizing both Rapid Support Force and Sudanese military generals in a statement. He said that the two generals were destroying Sudanese cities. So military not happy with Sudanese military, not happy with William Ruto. Yesterday, Yasir Al-Atta, number 3 general of Sudanese military, spoke. I think he's a lieutenant general and he is assistant chief of staff. Deputy chief of staff is Shamsuddin Kabashi, head is Burhan, and number 3 is, I think, Yasir Al-Atta. Yasir Al-Atta directly addressed William Ruto. He said, Ruto, don't send East African security forces to Sudan. Come to Sudan with your army. We'll fight. We will fight against your forces, William Ruto. That is what Yasir Al-Atta said yesterday against Kenyan president. This proposal of deployment of African forces to Sudan was strongly rejected by Sudanese military. Sudanese military wants Afghan forces to support its operations. It does not want deployment of African forces to secure airports, etc., for humanitarian operations. But Afghan countries are largely neutral, we cannot say completely. They don't want to send their forces in support of RSF or Sudanese military. That is why military is not happy with Kenya. And military believes Kenya has links with trade links with rapid support forces. Watch a clip of Yasser Lata warning Kenyan President William Ruto. Think watch.
ويجي زي الرئيس الكيني يقول انا اجيب قوات شرق افريقيا. يا الرئيس الكيني قوات شرق افريقيا خليها في محلها. انت جيب الجيش الكيني تعال. والدولة الدعماك والدعم كل المرتزقة الزينة الدعماك بالقرش مشترياك بالقرش هي ذاتها تجيب جيشها. والله قسم واحد فيهم بيرجع تاني ما في زول بيرجع. نظامنا بلبس نحن يا اخوانا طريقنا واحد. سودان يشرق عليه الشمس يوم باكر بلا جنجويد. نحن كعساكر ما دارين نحكم، القوى السياسية تجي كلها تتفق وتحكم، لكن بنقول لها السودان ما لعبة، ما لعبة لكل